Broad Street Review podcast is an extension of Broad Street Review, Philly's home for arts, culture, and conversation, an online arts and culture journal covering the greater Philadelphia area. I'm your host, Darnell Radford. Today on the podcast, Eric Smith, Katie Gaynor, and Sara Zia Ibrahimi Hughes stop in to talk about the second annual Philadelphia Bookstore Crawl, a celebration of the vibrant and wonderful bookstore scene here in Philadelphia. Here is my interview with Eric Smith, Katie Gaynor, and Sara Zia Ibrahimi Hughes for Philadelphia Bookstore Crawl. And welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I'm in the virtual studio to talk about the Philadelphia Bookstore Crawl, which is coming up at the end of August. And I have several guests with us, and I will give them a chance to introduce themselves. We'll start with Katie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Gaynor. Thanks for having me, Darnell. It's great to be here with everyone. I am the owner of the soon-to-be cookbook shop, new to Philly, called Binding Agent.
Thank you, Katie. And Eric.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, my name's Eric Smith. I'm a literary agent and young adult author based here in Philly. And I've been wrangling this bookstore crawl together.
Great. And Sara.
Yeah, hi. I'm Sara Zia Ibrahimi. Some people also know me as Sara Hughes, and I'm the co-owner together with my husband, Greeland Hughes, of Multiverse, which is a bookstore in the northwest part of Philly that celebrates speculative fiction.
Awesome. One thing I've noticed that there actually have been a lot of bookstores that have been popping up, which has been really cool. And also just, I feel like we were kind of missing places to just congregate because you always have to go somewhere for a specific purpose. And so we started seeing like board game cafes and things like that were coming up. And I think Philly is like a hotbed for pretty much everything that's like nerdy and cool, which is probably because of like the long time and lasting legacy that is Geekadelphia. So we'll bring that into the mix here. But so tell us about the Philadelphia Bookstore Crawl and how this came to be.
Yeah, well, my wife and I moved away from Philadelphia for a little while. We moved to Richmond for a year, and we moved to Ann Arbor in Michigan for 2 years. And then we came back because people always come back when it comes to having lived in Philadelphia. But when we were in Richmond, there was a bookstore crawl that went to the different shops all around the town. Richmond has an amazing indie bookstore scene. And then when we moved to Ann Arbor, there was another bookstore crawl. That town also has a huge bookstore scene. I told my wife, I was like, if we ever move back to Philadelphia, I would do this back at home. And then we moved back to Philadelphia. We came back in 2019, and I was planning to do it. I was like, that's it. I'm going to put this together. I registered the domain name. And then 2020 happened, and that kind of took care of all of that. Once we came out of it, though, and I started seeing people going to bookstores, it was on, and I emailed a gaggle of my friends to see who would want to help. I emailed the bookstores that I was already friends with to say hey, I'm going to do this thing. Will you say that you're in so other bookstores will say yes, because none of them know me. And I'm just going to appear to be this random guy asking them to give up a day of their time. So Christina at Novel Idea and Janine at Harriet's and Claire over at Head in the Hand, they all said yes, and they all helped me out. And that was it. We launched it last year, and it was a wild time.
Wow. Is there any way for you to tell how many people participated in the crawl?
Ooh, I wish, because then maybe getting sponsors would be easier, right? Because everyone wants to know exactly how many people come through.
Mhm.
But all we have are the pictures, right? And the photos just
Mhm.
every bookstore was just wildly packed. And I had bookseller friends telling me that like the day after they closed early because they were so low on stock, they didn't want to stay open. So like I know a lot of people go, and last year I had some wonderful folks come up to me who had come up from Texas to go to every bookstore they could. So I know the reach is
Wow.
there, and I know last year, by the time the bookstore crawl had hit, the Google map that I had launched for it had over 100,000 people access it. So like it was a good amount of people.
Oh, that's great. Um, and it's also great when, like, I didn't know about the Philly book crawl last year. And maybe I did find out, but it was after the fact. But the fact that I didn't know about it, but a ton of people did, is also a great thing, because when you do find out, you're like, where was I? How was I? What? How did I not know? And then I feel like there's like an urgency when you realize there's this thing, it's a hit, it's been here for a minute, and you're like, wait a minute, okay, now I have to be aware of this. I also feel like that's something about Philly. I don't know if, I guess it's a fear of missing out, sort of, but it's also, I feel like the city is full of influencers. It's pretty much, I feel like everyone is an influencer in some way, and we all want to know what's going on so we can tell somebody else what's going on.
Wow,
Absolutely.
flattering, Darnell. I've never thought of myself that way, but I'm gonna carry that energy into the next phase. I'm an influencer, Darnell said so.
Absolutely. If you have something of value to share, you are an influencer. You're telling everybody it rocks, and they're following you and saying like, well, you're cool and you're doing this, so perhaps I can be cool by doing this. Oops, somebody agrees.
Yeah, I hear my 6-year-old.
Aw. Hello, podcast guest. So Katie and Sarah, tell me how you got involved in Philly Book Crawl.
Yeah, I can jump in. So Multiverse has been open since October of 2023. Like many small businesses, we had a ever-changing open date, right? I think the first one we really fully publicly announced was April, and then it was, the summer, and then it was September. And so we had been scrambling and dreaming and hoping that we would be part of last year's book crawl when we heard about it, but couldn't quite get open in time. And so I basically, every time I had a chance, made sure I was on Eric's radar on social media of just saying, don't forget about us, even though we weren't in the mix last year. And so, I think it's just sort of as someone who's a book lover, had heard about it in different ways and was really excited about it. And to your point, Darnell, I feel like so many people who come in our store haven't heard of it, and it's exciting because it means that there's like an untapped layer of people this year. And when it was already so successful in its first year, like I'm super excited to see what it might look like this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the younger people that populate Philadelphia, their fingers more so on the pulse. I feel like everyone else's default is, I'm overwhelmed with whatever it is. Hey, you want to check? I'm overwhelmed. I didn't even tell you what it was. I am overwhelmed.
I do think, though, an event like this is one of the ways that kind of helps break through and combat some of that overwhelm at times. I have a feeling that there are a lot of people in Philly, there are a lot of people across the country that really want to support independent bookstores. They don't know how to break through the routine of how they normally access books, of how they engage with, like with the shops and the small business owners in their communities, and having an event like this that people can put on their calendars. They know to show up, they know they'll see people there, they know the energy is going to be good. And especially now, I think people really love to be a part of community and find community and be a part of an energy that's so positive. So I do think that, it's really like, Eric, as you said, you had the idea, well before or, heading into 2020 and that kind of locked things down. But now it's such a more potent and really impactful thing because it gives people that opportunity to step out and check out some stores they maybe never have before, that they need that excuse or a reason to make the leap.
Yeah. And
and it's such a cool thing too, because oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh no, I was just gonna jump in and say another thing that is really cool to me about the book crawls. 'Cause Philly's such a neighborhood, I don't want to say siloed, but it's so much.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is that this kind of weaves together different neighborhoods. And so I think another factor is there's some people who are like, I only hang out in my neighborhood or in X, Y, and Z neighborhood. I can't tell you how many times people come to our store and been like, I didn't know all this stuff was up here, right? And it's like, yeah, because you had your preconceived notions about what this neighborhood was like or who was here. And a really cool thing about the book crawl is it pushes you to take a path through the city and discover what else is out there.
Absolutely. When you think about it, I think the library system has 19 locations, right? And they're in all the neighborhoods. So, I often walk past. There's a library location in Point Breeze, and I walk past that one all the time. And I've never been inside. What's funny about that is I lived across the street from it. Literally could look out the window and never went inside. But I always wondered who is visiting and populating this bookstore. I think it was partly because I was, working during the day. And so when I came home, but it's just interesting to say that I'm aware of them. And there's other people in the neighborhood who probably don't even know that there's a bookstore, that there's a library on Federal Street. So let alone to find our bookstores as well. Yeah, how many bookstores are participating in this?
So this year we have 34. Last year it was around 24, I think, but this year it's 34. And, and quickly to tie into what you were all saying, one of the big comments we heard last year from a lot of bookstores was that people would come in, they would look around and they would say to the bookseller or the manager, hey, I've always been meaning to come in here. I always meant to come in here, but I've never had the chance to come in. Oh, I've been, and that makes me so happy because that converts that person into a regular visitor. And that's
absolutely
the goal of this, is to get people going to their indie bookstores again as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. I know. So I follow a lot of writers who, share their wares on various social platforms. And I think one of them there was a couple that have bookstores that have very unique spaces in them. The one that I frequent a lot is the Drama Bookshop in New York, and they have a bookworm that's weaving through the entire bookstore, and it's a collection of all these notable books. A couple of my friends are in that bookworm, but it's like a it's a reason to come in there, even if you're not sure if you're going to buy a book. And so I'm wondering if are there any bookstores that you know of that have some unique thing that you have to go in and see, and then buy a bunch of books?
That's a good one. So here in Philly, I don't know what she's doing next, but Harriet's, the way Janine decorates that store, up until recently, it had this black and white sort of illustrated look throughout the entire store, and it's just really gorgeous, and you kind of want to go in and take a lot of pictures, is the way she kind of set it up there. And then you would go buy the books. It was this experience going into that store. And then maybe what was the other one that I really like that has that sort of fun vibe to it? Oh dear. Well, it just let me. It'll come to me later. But yeah, I like Janine.
It'll come to you. But I do want to kind of build on that though, because I think it's a great question in the way that indie bookstores are kind of developing. And you said, Darnell, you noticed a lot popping up. I think it's notable that Sarah and I are both owners of stores, new stores that are really niche interest. that we have a specific focus of a type of book and a type of reader and kind of an area of the book world, which is enormous, that we're focusing on. Because I think that's a trend for a reason. People are looking for spaces to find community. There's so much out there. It's hard to know what to read, when to read it. And so that opportunity to curate and create an experience and a vibe, as Eric was saying, like a really, that energy and kind of that experience when people walk in. It's not just about, are you going to come in and buy a book today, but like, who are you going to, know you're going to find behind the counter, you're going to have a great conversation with. What are you going to see that's going to inspire you? That's a big thing that, gets people, again, out of the house and into a shop to support small businesses and to find their next great read or their next great book that they're going to cook from, in my case, I hope. Yeah. So I do think that's something we're seeing in the landscape that's really notable and is sort of changing the way that indies show up in their communities and how they support readers and really great, subsections of people.
Yeah. Because bookstores were community centers, and some of them still are. I was saying earlier that I'm often like saddened when I hear that a bookstore is struggling to keep its doors open. Like, I know, like, the storied career of the book trader, for example, has always had issues. Like, it's open. It may not be open for long, but you go there and you're just glad to see that it's still there. I was wondering, because I'm thinking about the book trader in Old City and saying, like, are bookstores haunted? What do you think?
I think it depends on the store, maybe.
I mean, there are ghosts in these pages.
Yeah.
There's something romantic and mysterious about a bookstore, because if it's
that's true.
If it's done right, it's filled to the brim with books, and you can get lost easily. And I'm just wondering if you think that there are ghosts enjoying books in the bookstore with you.
Probably.
That's such a great question. I feel like as the store that specializes in alternate realities, I should have a good answer for that. But
I was going to say, Sarah, I'm going to lean on you on that one.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you say that, though, because part of the process, we've had this idea for years, and then, we would occasionally look at storefronts and we didn't know exactly, we had a size and things like that, but we didn't know exactly what we were looking for. And then one day when Graylin, my partner that I co-own with, called me, and he was just like, this is the one, right? And he was like, I looked at something, and there is what is that gut feeling, that energy, that interdimensional message that you're getting, that's the right space.
Yeah.
So maybe not haunted in the kind of scary sense, but there was definitely something there that was like, this is the one.
Yeah.
I had that experience too.
Oh, you did?
With
That's
my
awesome.
space, yeah. And I think there is something to the idea that books are an artifact that captures part of who we are and the stories we tell about ourselves that is really romantic and mysterious, and that kind of imbues an energy in a space. But I think too, you all had that walking into an empty room and knowing this is it. And I had that same knowingness. And I think it's the same knowingness that told me this is what I should do. Even though it is risky, bookstores are a little bit haunted, and you do hear about news about things changing, the landscape constantly evolving. But I felt a pull, and maybe that's a ghost. Look, I'll take it from you guys telling me what to do with my life. I'm watching. Who am I to say no?
First, we have to acknowledge that there are ghosts, and then we try to figure out if they are friendly or evil.
Or not. Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Maybe it's a spectrum.
Come to me. This book right here is for you.
And that's what you can expect at finding me.
But it is an interesting thing, though, as a book retailer. I had never understood this before when I was just a book lover, but that there are certain days where there's or a certain week where a book will suddenly sell more than anything else. And I don't know if it is something else in the air, or maybe there was a story on a podcast that I'm not aware of, but it was just interesting where it's oh, this book has been here for months, and then all of a sudden this week 3 people were interested in it. Yeah. There's some interesting what is it that guides people to pick the book, and why is it on the same day or week where that suddenly happens?
It's the algorithm.
It's the algorithm of life. Yeah.
The algorithm of life. Yeah.
Well, for example, when Kamala Harris announced that she would be running, HBO started promoting Veep like almost immediately because it was like a great tie-in. It's like, hey, check this out. So I don't know. I think it's somebody's paying attention, going like, what? Okay, boom, let's ping this. Let's see what we could do here.
It's funny, Darnell, you're talking about like ghosts and vibes and energy and everything. And sometimes I think some bookstores have like a certain energy based on how long they've been there and I guess the influence that they've had. Cause like I feel that way whenever I go into Giovanni's room down on 13th. Right? Like you know that this is a historic bookshop. You know that this is a place people fought hard to keep there, right? Like I remember years ago when it was, gonna close, and then the Philly Thrift came along and sort of scooped it up and has kept it. You could feel that kind of energy in a lot of the bookstores, and I love that, especially that one.
Absolutely. I could definitely tell in Giovanni's room. Being young and gay and walking through Giovanni's room, the staff, like, they read everyone. They can kind of tell, what people might be looking for. And it just always felt like a comfy, cozy place. Especially upstairs, they had a couple of, nice living room furniture that you could just sit in forever and just read a book while there's a employee like managing the database and somebody's in the other room and they're having a very quiet conversation. but there's like this buzz, this humming. And like Giovanni's room was a destination before I moved to Philly. It was just like one of those places I definitely have to pop in and see what's new. What are they recommending? I also love that a bookstore has staff picks. Because now you're getting a feel for the people who work here and who pride themselves on being here, and they're giving recommendations. And you're thinking, because there's so many books to pick off the shelf, and sometimes it's helpful for someone to say, "This one grabbed me from the first page. I read it and I couldn't put it down." And okay, they couldn't put it down, so I'm gonna see what's what in here. I think it's a great thing. I was going to ask, when did you discover your love of books? Can you pinpoint a moment? You just woke up one day, you were a literary agent.
Well, like for me, it was definitely like my meddling parents. Like they put me in like a gifted and talented program, which, I've worked through that in therapy plenty, but like the G&T program was very much like, oh, he's reading really early. Let's put him through this. Let's do this. Let's do this. So I ended up getting all of these, and I'm sure you remember these as children. They were called like it's like the Great Illustrated Classics, and they were like these white, chunky hardcover books that had sort of like pared down versions of like Moby Dick and like Great Expectations and all of that. And I read all of them when I was like in like second grade. And I was a very like snotty little kid. Like, oh, I read Moby Dick. I did not read Moby Dick. I read the Great Illustrated Classics version of Moby Dick, but I still thought I was like such a big deal. I was so fancy. And that just like continued my whole life. Like I read all these classic books growing up, and then finally I discovered books that felt like they were written a little bit more for me. Like Sarah, I wonder if you went through a Michael Crichton phase, but oh my goodness, I like read all of his sci-fi novels when I was like way too young to have been reading those sci-fi novels, paired along with every B.C. Andrews book. Like I was reading Flowers in the Attic and Jurassic Park and just completely messing myself up. And that was it. That got me into books when I was younger. Classic chunky hardcovers paired with Michael Crichton and B.C. Andrews that eventually ended up with me working in publishing for the last 15 years.
Oh, Nate. Awkward. I've been similar to Eric. I've been a reader my whole life. I can't pinpoint a time when I wasn't a little weirdo with a book in my hand. This time of year is always very evocative of like, oh, I was the kid who didn't want to go to the pool. I wanted to be left alone in my living room, like in my little fort with my, my little chapter books my whole life. But more kind of to the point for Binding Agents, which is a culinary bookstore, I actually didn't come to kind of use and love cookbooks until I was in college. My mom taught me how to cook. She was a very improvisational cook. She had cookbooks, but she kind of looked at them for inspiration and then put them back on the shelf and cooked the dish from start to finish without looking at it again. And it was around the time in the like the mid-aughts when food blogs were really popping off that I learned to cook from a recipe and then started buying books that taught me how to cook, to approach different cuisines. And I would start, cooking through a book and kind of really engaging with it as a book itself, as opposed to a collection of recipes. And that was something that really changed how I kind of moved and lived in the kitchen. And that was a really inspiring time in my life. And that's something I'm hoping to share with people through the shop.
Wow. That's great.
Right.
Have you ever read The 4-Hour Chef?
I never have.
By Tim Ferriss. It's a huge book. It's more of like a resource than anything.
Yeah.
But I have that one on my shelf with a ton of I have a separate collection of cookbooks. Mm-hmm. And they're separate from all my other books.
That I find that's often the case in the home.
I keep trying to find space in the kitchen. Like I should put them on the shelf in the kitchen, but they're in the dining room. I also have one signed by Patti LaBelle.
Oh, that's special.
Yeah,
she has a cookbook?
Desserts LaBelle. It's very good.
Oh my gosh.
WHYY did a talk back with Patti LaBelle, and if you signed up for it, you got the book, and you got a chance for it was signed too, and then you got to wait and meet with her afterwards. I was so nervous. I waited in this line forever, thinking of everything I was going to say. I was like, "Oh my God, my grandma had these tapes in the car, and there were like 3 songs I remember of yours." And when I got there, I was just like, "Hi, Patty." And I took the photo and just walked away. I was so nervous. It's a great memory, though. Yeah. But I called my grandma and said, "Patty says hello. And when I finish with her cookbook, I'll send it to you."
But the book, I also feel like a book can represent a memory like that, right? Mm-hmm. So having that, and then having, it's like the story in the book, but then it's also the story of how you came to that book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of ways they both said resonates for me too. Like I was a very early reader. I think a lot of mine was also being an only child to a single parent who was working all the time, being a new immigrant to the US, like there was, and then just being like my awkward weirdo self. There was a lot of different factors. My mom was also, I mean, I kind of refer to her jokingly as like a hippie, but like I wasn't allowed to watch TV or play with Barbies or like do any of the kind of mainstream American things for many of our initial years here. And so books were like really my refuge, right? And the library was absolutely that place. But I have memories of like the bookstore that was next to the Publix. I grew up this was in Florida, right? And like that excitement of being able to be like, especially once I got old enough to be like, can I go to the bookstore for 20 minutes while you do groceries? But similarly, I also want to like bring in comic, because we have novels, but also comics and graphic novels too, which a lot of people don't think about it, or some people disqualify it as reading, right? But I think it's so important because there's so many people that's their entry point into reading. And similarly at the grocery store, like reading Archie comics at the front of the store, waiting for my mom while she was shopping, but then having like this real love for like and super interest in other comics as I got older. But like I felt so unwelcome in comic book stores, particularly as a woman, right? And like there was this pressure to already know what I was looking for, not feeling like you could walk in and wander, right? So almost the opposite of what you were saying, Darnell, like the experience at Giovanni's room, right? Like instead of helping you and suggesting something, it was like the most isolating experience ever.
Get out.
And so I would have to borrow comic books from other people And, you know, it was just like a whole scenario. So that was a really formative thing for me of like, how can I create a different welcoming space? And then, you know, similarly for my husband, he had, you know, sort of different intersections of his identity that, but like for both of us as people of color, as folks that weren't seeing reflections of ourselves, both in the content and the staff of a lot of stores that we went into, it was really important to try to create a space that would welcome like a full spectrum of fandom.
Absolutely.
And wherever you're at.
Yeah. Comic books are appointment books. All of my friends have a Tuesday appointment to go get the new copies as they come out. And I was just thinking that we just lost Fat Jacks on Sansom. That was very sad. I do remember going in there a lot. I think we still have Atomic Comics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Comics were... I had a friend who was leaving the country. He had a ton of comic books he was just going to throw out. And I was like, are you crazy? Don't. And I was like, I'll take them. And he was like, you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'll take them. I didn't know how many he had. I didn't know how heavy those boxes are. I have 10 boxes of comics in my best friend's basement. And he has a ton of them upstairs too, but it's crazy.
Right. So I'm hearing that we have to work on book storage solution, your cookbooks and your comics.
Yes. I know. I can't say that I'm not a book person. I have tons of books. I've even learned how to pack them when I'm moving. You have to pack a tote with half books and then everything else.
Ooh, interesting. That is an interesting approach.
Or else all the boxes are going to be heavy and none of your friends are going to want to help you.
That's true.
I will say when I was a kid, when I was younger, I checked out Frog and Toad Are Friends from the library. I don't think I ever gave it back to them, but that book resonated with me so deeply. And now Apple TV has a series for Frog and Toad with a lot of like present day stars, and it's wonderful. I'm just sitting there with like this cake eating grin the whole time watching it, going like, this is so great. And also when I was 12, PBS had a series called Ghost Rider. And Ghost Rider was a ghost that used words to communicate with these kids. And Apple TV, again, like revamped Ghost Rider, created a new series. And I'm as in love with it as I was with the original. I don't know if it's continued yet. It had 3 seasons, but it was really great. And I especially loved the way they spent a lot of time exploring one book. And then it's kind of like, sort of like the One Book program, where they spent enough time on this book. Like, how do you not want to go get this book after you've followed this story, this adventure that they just took you on? So I thought that was a great vehicle. I really hope it continues to inspire kids like me. I don't know if they thought a 44-year-old adult was going to be in love with this story that's like +7, I think. But they are wonderful. What are your takes on book clubs? How do you feel about them?
Man, I love a good book club. It always makes me really happy to find out like one of my authors is in a book club, or there's a bunch of people planning to read one of the books. Like I often see that in I'm a little crazy. I have Google alerts for like every writer I work with and all their books and everything, and I will get the alerts that like some local library is hosting a book club for X whatever title, and I love seeing that. I like seeing a bunch of people celebrating a book. Unless we're talking about like celebrity book clubs, are we talking about like the Reese Witherspoon book clubs and stuff? Because I love those too. Because they end up putting an author in the spotlight who might not otherwise get that kind of huge attention.
They all have their value, but I love the community ones. The ones that somebody's like, I'm reading this book. You want to come join in with me? Come read this with me.
Well, and my favorite as an introvert is the silent book clubs, which we're actually collaborating with two other bookstores in our neighborhood. So with Booked and Hilltop Books and Chestnut Hill together with us at Multiverse. Every Tuesday in August, we're doing a silent book club in the park. And so, if folks aren't familiar with that, it's this idea where you just come together and for the first hour, there's no talking. It's just reading. And then if you want to socialize and connect with people, you can, but it even just gives an opening of like, oh, I saw you there. And then I might run into you later in the neighborhood somewhere and strike up a conversation. But there's like the images of it online I've seen. I've never actually been to one, so I'm really excited to host it starting next week. But the images of just like having 30 or 40 people sitting next to each other quietly reading just makes my heart sing. So I'm excited for that book club model. And then we're this fall doing a dystopian book club, which is like there's sort of like 4 core questions that will structure every conversation of like, what were the conditions that led to the dystopia? What's the technology in that world and how did it help or harm? How are the humans like resilient and how do people survive it? And then what can we learn from that applies to our current world? So to me, it's like a merging of my like analytical brain and my fiction brain of just like being really excited to pick apart the books. So I like those kinds of book clubs, but I know that there's ones where people just like drink wine and chit chat and that's great
also
too.
Good. But that absolutely rules, Sarah. That's really, really cool. I'm excited about that. And for Silent Book Club too. I think that like at the end of the day, the joy of book club is any book club is the connection that you get to feel with others who have experienced the same text that you have, which is fewer and farther between nowadays. There's so much media. There's so much content. It can be really hard. You're like throwing a dart, even if you're at a shop and there's staff picks or somebody who really wants to direct you toward a book. Sometimes it feels like, am I going to be the only person I know who read this or picked this up? Something I'm also similar to the silent book clubs that has become really popular. You see a lot online that we'll be doing at Binding Agents, this cookbook club. So that'll be an opportunity for folks to check out a new book, hopefully get through us, but however it comes to you, and sign up basically to participate in a large scale potluck, bring a dish from the book, kind of organize it around like actually structuring an appropriate meal. So everybody can come taste dishes from the book, experience the book in its fullness, which a lot of people don't always get to do quickly. Like you get a new cookbook, it's going to take you a while to get through a bunch of the dishes, right? This way you get that big, beautiful cross section. You get to be with other people who love to cook, who love to eat, experience that together. Some of the ones on Instagram are so beautiful. Like, wow, these people are professionals. So hopefully anybody who's been seeing that content online or interested in it, or if you've ever done it with your friends, that'll be something you'll be able to do through my shop starting this fall. So that's something to stay tuned for.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great idea.
Yeah.
I love it. I feel like your store is basically like my second dream after my first dream, which is my bookstore. So it's really exciting to hear all the things you're doing.
It's so flattering to hear. Thank you. I'm so excited that we both exist in this community. I think Philly has such an amazing community of indie bookstores and indie booksellers. I think what Eric is doing to like bring attention to that and an opportunity for that for everybody to kind of come up together and be like active on the same day is so special. And it really gives people an opportunity to see the depth and breadth of what they can experience in like through the bookstores that are the city, that are there across like the whole metro area. It's really amazing. I think you would be surprised looking at the map that Eric's put together, how many there are and where they are and what they do. It's going to be a really cool day.
Yeah, for sure. And I just love when people come up with collective solutions to things or like ways to, build more, we're stronger together, right? Yeah. And so what I love about what Eric's doing is just really encouraging all of us to join forces, right? And see ourselves as part of a larger community. And really thinking about centering the values of collaboration instead of competition, right? Which is so important to make sure that we don't fall into as we're still trying to like exist in this economic structure and have our stores be successful.
Absolutely. And I think it's great to see such a collective of bookstores because people will think about the major bookstores like this, the franchise retail bookstores and say, because they don't see many of those, that, bookstores are dying. Like, that big Borders that was on Broad Street is no longer there. Barnes and Noble moved to a smaller location, which in a way I think it's a better location for the wayfinding. It actually feels fun to kind of walk through that bookstore, but I do think that people are just like, no, you can't get a book anywhere. Like, no, there are bookstores. Just the
You
few
can.
places you don't have to go to. Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to ask just for fun, like I know people have special places that they prefer to be when they're reading a book. I know over the years, Eric, you had posted on your socials like pictures of your home and where you have all your books. I remember seeing that over the years. Do you all have particular places that you prefer to sit and read or go and read? Like, how do you read?
I have I mean a variety of different things, but I think probably like my favorite is being in my hammock in the backyard and reading. But I also, when I was just talking to a friend about this yesterday, again, it's that weird kind of like alone together thing, but I really enjoy reading my own book next to someone else, right? And so the idea of will you go to a coffee shop with me, but then just read next to me is pretty dreamy, but a lot of people are really confused by that. But there, every once in a while, there's like that special person in my life that gets it. And so that is also like co-reading separate things.
Yes, that's the
I really love.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I do the same thing with my best friend. We always say like that. This is how we know we're good friends. We can exist in a room without having to say anything. We're just there existing next to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my favorite reading routine is, my wife watches a lot of reality TV. I often watch it with her, but every now and again, it's something that I'm not super psyched about. So I sit there on the couch with her. She watches her show. I'm reading my book. And I always have to talk about what's happening in my book. So like something will make me laugh and I'll be like, babe. And I'll explain it to her. And she'll be like, I don't know who any of these people are. What are you talking about? I'm like, it's okay. I'll go back to my book. And then 10 minutes later, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. And like, I probably drive her a little crazy, but that's love. That's love. We make it works.
That's real love. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I like to read. I mean, this isn't an everyday thing, but I think like the elite experience is reading on a plane. There's something about being like away, and things have changed. It's different now because you can sometimes get text messages like you're no longer like trapped in a tube in the sky with no like outside, influence. But there was something really protected about that space that I always just loved getting on a plane, knowing I had my book and just crushing a book on the plane is a great feeling. I similarly love to read on the beach because I feel like it's sort of that's like a dedicated space. People collectively recognize this is a reading place. A lot of other people are doing it. You can look up and see folks with their books and see what they're reading too. I think people who live in I've heard my friends in New York City say that the subway is kind of like that for them. You see the subway books everybody's reading. There's something communal about that where you're not together, but you are nearby and we're all doing it. Those are places that I really love to be and to read, but those are, few and far between. I do love to read in my home as well.
I think the subway is part of why I started to embrace audiobooks. I lived in Jersey City for a couple of years and I worked in New York, and I would take the PATH train. I'm always getting mixed up with PATCO. I take the PATH train over, and as soon as it went underwater, the train got quiet and everybody kind of fell asleep. It was so soothing that it was just like everybody got a power nap. And so I remember like I had a book in hand and I was leaning on the pole and I'm reading it and I'm just my eyes are getting heavy and I'm just like, wait a minute. There's something so peaceful and calming about we're in a tunnel underwater. And so then I switched over to the audiobooks because now I'm just resting my eyes. I'm still consuming it. It was a fun experience. So back to the bookstore crawl. This is all supportive conversation for the bookstore crawl. If you participate in the book crawl and you go to one of the participating locations, are there special events that take place, or is it really just an opportunity to say, hey, we're always here, we're always awesome?
Yeah, so every bookstore is playing their own thing. Some bookstores have signings that are going on all day with like multiple authors coming through. Some bookstores are doing special giveaways or discounts. Some are doing talks, like at American Grammar. We're doing a sit down with publishing professionals to talk to writers about how to break into the business. So everyone's doing their own thing. So it's a big mix of stuff for sure.
Yeah, I can say in our neighborhood up in the Northwest, we're doing, so us again, together with our neighbor stores at Booked and Hilltop, we reached out to several local businesses. So there's going to be like a book lovers breakfast special at some of the cafes in the area that you can get. And then, each of our stores is doing sort of different sales too. So I think it's a great day. I know I heard someone saying like they save their money up all year for the like after last year's bookstore crawl, right? Because they're ready to like take advantage of these really incredible deals. And so I think it is a day where if you love books, that you're going to be able to have some really exciting opportunities.
I'm excited because it's actually a preview day for me. So my store is opening in October. And so this will be the first day that the doors are open. I won't be fully stocked and operational, but have a few like of the coolest cookbooks of 2024 so far for people to check out, some snacks and breakfasts for people who stop by in the morning. And then I'm very delighted to be welcoming the folks from Molly's Books and Records just down the street, which has an amazing collection of used and antiquarian cookbooks in addition to all of their amazing other used books and records. They are partnering with Cosmic Writers, an organization that does writing workshops and education for young people, to do a monster building writing workshop for kids age 8 to 14 out of my shop, just because we have the space, and it'll be a great opportunity for folks to come check out the Italian market. And if they have younger ones, something fun to do that day. So mine will be a combination of see what's going on behind the scenes and get ready for our opening in the fall, and the kickoff to a season of what I'm calling cook/book bingo. So there'll be bingo cards people can take with them, track their culinary and literary adventures for the next few months, and then bring them back for some prizes and discounts when we officially open. So little promotion, little event, little sneaky peeky, some books to check out. So I think a lot of other stores are doing fun stuff in addition to just, again, we're here and we're always cool. Shopping at an indie bookstore is always cool, and you should do it.
Absolutely. Katie, is Binding Agents primarily a cookbook store?
Yep, Binding Agents, will be primarily a cookbook store. We're also going to be carrying, I've been saying, foodish fiction and nonfiction, culinary memoir, children's books focused on food. So it's a bookshop for cooks and eaters. If you're trying to cook, we're here to help you do that. If you love to eat, you want to read about people eating, this is one of my favorite activities. I love reading about people eating. It's so fun. Whether it's fiction or not, it's a great feeling to enjoy somebody else enjoying a meal. So there'll be a lot of that at the shop as well. And then gifts and goods for whatever you're making, whatever you're serving, however you're enjoying it, stuff to make hosting fun, being guests fun, and being in your kitchen fun.
Will there ever be any guests cooking in your bookstore?
I hope so. It's really, we're a micro store, very tiny space. So not a lot of room for a commercial kitchen. I hope to, but in addition to Cookbook Club, where folks will bring dishes, I hope that in the future we'll be able to host chefs who are able to bring examples of their amazing food. We're putting together some stuff to be able to facilitate that. But in the super long run, I hope to be able to partner with some organizations and spaces here in Philly to host classes, and do events on a larger scale outside of the physical shop. So I think folks can get excited for taste treats at the space in the Italian markets, but then also look forward to a schedule of events and programs in the future that'll be a little more robust and exciting.
Well, that's gonna be a great draw for all the foodies in the city. I was thinking about I wrote a short play about two women waiting for the bus, and in their conversation they talk about what they made for dinner last night. It is so animated and way over the top, and it ends with them eating these cream cheese cupcakes my grandma used to make. And and so it was such a fun moment because like the way they get so animated, like they're talking about how tired they are in the day, but then they get so animated when they start talking about food. And it's just wonderful. Like when you hear someone talk about like home cooking, like what just makes them feel so complete, like comfort food and everything. It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, I think food's tied up in memory, books are tied up in memory, the way that we kind of like download and keep that information in our brains. These are some of the ways that I access the treasured memories of my life and what I hope the future looks like. For it's how I remember my mom is a big thing. When I cook and when I read, those are two big ways that I remember and get to be with her. And that's what my shop is about. I think that's why a lot of people feel called to create bookstores and places of connection because, you know, books are a way that we access experience, both that we've had and that we haven't. And food's that way too. And isn't that cool that you can marry them together?
Absolutely. And I also think multiverse sounds exciting too, because, you know, comic book culture right now, like, yeah, I mean, what just opened over the weekend? Everyone's having conversations about all of that.
Yeah, and we you know we have all that, you know, the sort of Marvel and DC and stuff that I think is a great entry for folks that are you know, exposed to it, let's say through television or movies, and those are fantastic stories. But there's also so much interesting indie stuff and artist-driven stuff that's out there. We also have a local writers section of a bunch of like locally created comics as well, and just want to shout out Partners in Sun, which is also another great store that has a lot of local and indie comics and zines as well. But I think what we were interested in though is sort of like the idea of other universes and realities, right? And so to our knowledge, there are not that many models of what we're doing, which is having the comic books alongside you know, speculative fiction, which is science fiction, magical realism, fantasy, like all in the same space, and having the novels, comics and graphic novels, I'll be there. But I was thinking about what you were saying, Katie, though, about memory and community and connection. And I think yes to all that plus one. And I think one thing we think a lot about is the way that like storytelling and speculative fiction, particularly for those of us that don't have like a specific faith-based practice, that it's like almost like a new way of sharing mythology or like iconography and shared storytelling, right? So the kind of experience of being like, I saw Deadpool this weekend, I'm coming to buy these Deadpool comics or whatever, right? It's a shared figure. It's a shared story. It's like a, you know, and then that serves a very similar function in a society that for some people, and again, I'm not saying that you can't also be religious or have a faith practice and be into these things, but I think for those that don't, it might be something that kind of fills that space.
Yeah.
And also in general, it's another way it is, you know, throughout time, the way that humans have found meaning and a sense of how we fit into the world through shared iconography and storytelling. And so that there's that part of the story that is really exciting for both of us as well.
Great.
It's really cool. Sorry, I completely agree. I think that people crave affinity and they crave the opportunity to meaning make together. And I think increasingly they crave that in a way that's rooted in the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
I did and do. That's why, you know, that's why I'm doing it. And there's something really beautiful about that and the philosophy behind your store and how it came to be and how it now exists in the physical world for people to visit, to like have that shared language and that shared reference together to make sense of that which is insensible. Nonsensical. Insensible is the wrong word, but nonsensical. Yeah, it's really special to get to do that. I hope you feel that when you walk into your store every day. I hope I will.
I do, and I'm sure you will. And I mean, I think food similarly, right? Like, is just such a way to to build connection, and also I think about it a lot in terms of culture, right? In terms of like losing my fluency in Farsi, but always still knowing how to cook, right? And I think if I heard you right, Katie, like a sort of connected to grief as well, or losing people when they pass on. And, you know, my mother also passed away, but there's this way that food is the way that you can still conjure people who have passed, right? And so I loved when you said that about food and sort of thinking about the store in that way.
Absolutely. There are definitely flavors that just transport me.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a silly question. Why should our listeners participate in Philadelphia Bookstore Crawl?
I mean, aside from all the events and the authors you might get to meet and the discounts and the giveaways, you're going to get to experience a lot of new neighborhoods that maybe you haven't been to before, or a lot of certainly a lot of new shops that you haven't seen. And even if you have been to all these places and have been to all these neighborhoods, like, it's a great day to celebrate them all. You know, it's a great day to show up, you know, and be reminded of what a great literary community we have. So, just come party and have a good time.
You also get to show off your new tote bag full of new books.
Yes.
Yeah. You will have a cool time. And then also other people will think you are cool. And that is as good a reason to do anything.
Right? Don't you want to be popular?
Don't you want to be one of us? The book people are so nice.
Say all the nerdy kids who were reading when they were
the little dork sitting under the beach umbrella, hiding under a towel, wishing to be inside. Yes, she's calling out from my past, saying, "Come sit with me."
Yeah. So, go ahead.
Oh no! I mean, I was just gonna say, I think it's also, you know, being in community is important. Even if you don't want to have to talk to everyone, just being around people, getting out of the house, I think is this is like an invitation to come engage. But I think Katie said something about world building a little bit, and I think about that a lot in terms of like, what is the world that we want to live in? And if you are someone that wants a world that where artists' work is supported and artists are, you know, in this case, writers in particular are thriving, and where there's a wide spectrum of stories that we get to sell, like this is. We talk about things in the abstract, but this is the way of how you actualize that into concrete action, right? And so not thinking about it just as like transactional of like, oh, we want your money as booksellers, but just like, how are you spending your time to show what is important to you and what you would attend to and put your attention towards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a great point, Sarah. And Darnell, you made that point earlier too. Like when you hear of a bookstore closing, it's sad. It hurts your heart. Nobody wants to hear that. And the way that we make that not be the case is we show up. And this is a great opportunity to do it with a lot of like-minded people and have a really good time.
Yeah. And every book is a portal to escape into, to escape the world's the madness. Like if it's too hot in the day, or the news cycle is driving you crazy, or you just can't wait to get off of work, you can transport yourself in any book. Which is why I think that's why there's so many people who own books who may not have read them or keep saying they're going to read them, because they believe that having that book means something special, and at some point it's going to trigger in them to go and read that book if they haven't already. I feel like, yeah, you just have to have books in your life. They're just great references. And like I said, they are great escapes. You're sitting around going, I don't know what to do with myself, but you're standing in front of a bookshelf with tons of books. Like, what do you mean you don't know what to do with yourself? Pick any one of these. Just start in the middle and see if you can catch on.
Well, it's like there was some meme I saw that was sort of like that books should be treated like wine. Like no one critiques people for having too much wine, or like a too later to learn work. Like it's just about finding the right moment in time to take it off the shelf and enjoy it. And so having a huge bookshelf, like you know, is even if you haven't read them all, it's okay because they'll find the right moment to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
All of my TBRs are aging perfectly at the
There you go.
moment. Yes, 100%. They're reaching their maturity. And when it is time, they will be perfect when I open them.
And they'll be handled with care when they come off the shelf.
Yes, yes. I store them with their corks angled the right way, and I know what way that is. I don't need to say it because I just know.
I'm glad this discussion about bookshelves is going this way because, like, at first I thought, I was like, are they attacking me? Because we are in front of my giant bookshelf right now. Like, this podcast is not a visual medium, but there's a big bookshelf behind me.
It's a celebration of your nerddom.
It is a glorious shelf. You have quite the system there.
Yeah.
It's really magnificent.
I feel like everybody out there, if you have a book, if you have a few books at your house, you have to go buy a really nice bookshelf. And it should be bigger than the amount of books you have, because once you put books up there, you're going to say, this isn't enough. I need more
One
books.
to grow on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's hope that I did that calculation right for my shelves that are currently being fabricated. Cross your fingers.
Yes, absolutely. Is there anything else we want to point out or mention before we wrap up?
I just want to thank Eric.
Oh.
What he's doing absolutely rules. It's so valuable to the community. It's so important for the booksellers that make their lives and their livings in Philadelphia. I think it's going to be an awesome day. And just thanks for putting in that effort and the time and the energy to make this be a real thing. It's really cool.
Oh, thank you, Lam. Happy you both are a part of it. It's going to be, it's going to be a great year.
Yeah, just so much gratitude of like, I what you're doing is both enormous and also, I don't want to say it's not that hard, but what I mean by that is just like, no one made you do this, right? And you figured out the resources and what it would take to do this, and then you let the stores each do their thing, but you kind of were like the spark to make it do together. And I think it's such a great model, like just thinking about other people, like when they have an idea, actually taking a step further to translate it into action, and then seeing the enormous ripple effect that it can have without you having to do a bazillion things. I know you're still doing 100 things to make this book happen, and we're deeply grateful for all that you are doing. But I think that also every time that we all participate in something where we model sharing resources and collectivity instead of competition, it goes against sort of the dominant narratives of isolation and competition and all those things. And so I thank you for the actual literal work, but also thank you for like modeling the world that I want to be a part of through your work.
This is wonderful. Y'all are too great. Thank you. Oh, wait, Darnell, I have a cute thing that maybe people could watch out for.
Sure.
So I haven't revealed it yet on Instagram, but it probably will be by the time the podcast goes live. There are going to be special destination stickers where, like, if you visit a bookstore and you post about the bookstore and you tag the bookstore and you tag the bookstore crawl, I will mail them to you. And they are designed stickers that like represent different neighborhoods with cute little book logos, and they're very adorable. There's only like 4 neighborhoods and then one badge that is the explorer badge, quote unquote, because budgets are limited and I couldn't hire someone to do all of them. But I think they're going to be very cute, and I hope a lot of people try to get them because I want to have a big mailing day over at Head in the Hand with all of my friends, and they're going to reveal them in a couple of days.
That's great. Destination stickers. So when you go to that bookstore, you get a nice blank notebook so you can put all your stickers in it.
There you go.
Cool. So you were saying earlier, I'm so glad that you've done the work to put this together. It's a calling, but actually it's a crawling. I'm not a dad yet, but I'm full of dad jokes.
And the thing about book people is they do have puns. So if that's
Oh,
something
yeah.
you're into, another great reason to show up on Crawl
Oh,
Day.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you all for taking the time to talk about the Philadelphia Bookstore Crawl and also your backgrounds and your journey and your love of books. Thank you so much for sharing with us. This was a lot of fun. And
Yes,
for all
thank
the
you for having
listeners,
us.
yes. And for all the listeners who want to learn more about the Philadelphia Bookstore Crawl, you can go to phillybookstorecrawl.com for all that information. We will also have links to these great bookstores. Multiverse Philly, it's multiversephilly.com. That's easy to remember. And then Binding Agents, who we are waiting for that information. We're going to be excited. When
Website to come, but you can find us on Instagram right now at Binding Agents. So in
Great.
the meantime, visit us there.
Absolutely. And you can, Eric, where can we find you? I already know,
You can
but
find
tell
me
everybody.
Yeah, you can find me at ericsmithrocks.com, where you can learn about my books and all of that stuff. And also just, Instagram as at Eric Smith Rocks as well.
Cool. All right. Eric, Katie, Sada, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. This was truly a pleasure.
Yes,
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you to our guests, Eric Smith, Katie Gaynor, and Sada Zia Ibrahimi Hughes, for joining us on today's podcast. The Broad Street Review podcast is an Emory production. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, visit us online at em3ry.com. Get involved with Broad Street Review. Head on over to our website at www.broadstreetreview.com and click Get Involved at the top. While you're there, help keep us running and click Donate to find out how. There you can also find our social media links. Thank you for your part in keeping the conversation going.